I'm using a chenille needle for this, size 22 or 24, which has a larger eye. You're going to knot the end of your thread, and we're using all 6 strands here for the spokes of our wheel. I'm going to use the same thread for all the spokes of all 3 of these. You're going to come up at the end of a spoke and then down through the center of the wheel. And when you do a woven wheel, you always want an odd number of spokes. So that's why we have 3, 5, and 7 here. You can tie that off on the back. And now we're going to take a super long piece of thread, all 6 strands. You're going to thread your needle and then double over the thread so that you can tie the ends in a knot. This is the only stitch where we're tying the ends of our thread together. So now it's essentially like we're stitching with 12 of the strands. Starting with a 7-spoke wheel, this one in the middle, you're going to come up to the right side of one of the spokes, and I'm going counterclockwise here. I'm skipping the first spoke and I'm going under the second spoke, going around to the left. We're working only on top of the fabric for this stitch, and we're going over, under all the spokes, which is why we need an odd number of spokes. So I'm going under this one, pull it kind of snug, and then over the next one, then under this one. I previously went over that one, and now I'm going under. One tip here is to actually use the eye of the needle, the bottom, and send that through first. It just makes it a little bit easier to slide it without snagging the fabric or your threads. So you can see how I'm sliding it under here. And make sure you give it a good tug every once in a while. You want these to stay pretty snug together. And you just continue to go around the whole circle, over, under. And every once in a while, I like to give it a little pinch like this to make sure everything's staying tight together. The reason we use 12 strands is it just makes it a little bit faster and fluffier. You want to keep your threads even as you go around, and I'm giving this a little tug because I could tell they got off a little bit. When you run out of string, send your needle down through the fabric and tie it off in the back. Then I started a new strand and just came up right where I left off because I just wanted to do a little bit more here. And it is tight at the end. Just use your needle as a guide to try to find those spokes, and then send your needle down through the fabric when you feel satisfied with how full it is. Tie it off in the back, and then I give it a little pinch again and use the eye of my needle to go around and just lightly tug at a couple threads here and there to make it fuller. We're going to do the same thing here with the 3-spoke, and you don't want to pull too hard for this one because the threads overlap a little bit more. Because there's not as much weaving with less spokes, it is going to look a bit more like a tighter rosebud. You can tie a knot like this in the back with the 2 strands once you've snipped it, which is kind of nice and makes it a little easier to finish off. And then the last one here is the 5-spoke, and that really is, I would say, probably the most popular. And personally, I like the look of the 5-spoke the most. Now, as you get to the end, it is hard to see the spokes, but you want this to completely cover over the spokes. So use that pointed end of your needle to try to feel for where the spokes are and slide it under there. It takes a little practice, but it does look best if you completely cover over them. Here I could tell that one of my strands ended up a little longer, so you divide your working threads and kind of give them a little tug. And you can see me do it again here. Separate them, give it a little tug to see which one needs tightening. And when you're finished, send it back down through your work, tie it off in the back, give it that little pinch, and take the eye end of your needle and carefully fluff it up a bit. And there you have the most gorgeous and textured look to your embroidery.